when I was at East Humble Park and he was going to introduce me. He said, I want to introduce someone real special.
Yeah.
He's saying a couple of different things, but he starts going into, he says, I remember when we were traveling to Paris, and we were traveling to Paris, I was like,
that was memorable.
Who is this guy?
I've heard this story several times too.
Yeah, but he didn't finish the story though.
He did?
He didn't finish the story. I was like, he was like, I was asking these questions, these questions, but I almost went up there and said he didn't finish the story, or at least where I thought he was going, and explained to everyone how he almost killed me.
Oh,
Killed all of us. He almost expedited the express route to heaven was about to happen.
I don't have no idea how fast we were going.
We were following my dad.
Yeah, and we were flying.
Okay.
Flying.
Yeah.
So I put the car on cruise control. Because we're just, I don't know how long, we've just been going and going.
Just long roads, yeah.
From where to where?
Paris back to Spain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
It's a bougie road trip.
So my feet were tucked under.
Yeah.
And I was driving like this. And we're just conversing. I'm looking in the mirror and Serena. So we're just talking and everything. And then,
we were like deep in conversation,
we're flying.
Yeah.
It was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I see Pastor Mark slowing down, and he pulls over to the side.
Oh boy!
And I'm like, why is he slowing down? Because there was an accident in front. So I pull my feet up, and I tried to press the brake to turn the cruise control off. It didn't turn off. It just didn't turn off, and it was just, and then we flew past the accident. Thank God.
We like made eye contact with my dad and them in the car too, and just like shoo, like right. I mean, just stopped cars on the highway, just like 90 miles an hour right past them.
And then I just pushed on the brake, and then finally we got to slow down.
Why didn't you just hit the off switch?
Because we were going 100 plus. I'm not thinking.
It's you're going so fast. You see Pastor Mark. Then it's like all these cars are stopped. From what I remember, it's like there was like a bunch of cars stopped, and there's like one. Like we just go zoom. I mean, fly past these people.
Oh my goodness!
It was just this adrenaline rush. It was like this. Like,
what was your dad's reaction?
They called us, or we called them, right? Didn't we call them? Yeah.
Hey, why are you going so fast? I tried to explain to them, bro, the cruise control wouldn't shut off.
I mean, they're slow down. We just like, shoo, like we're getting back to Spain. Like we're not stopping. Yeah.
What's your first thought when that car stops and you like realize what just happened? What are you thinking?
Thank God we're alive.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the back. I'm pretty sure I was in the back.
Oh, yeah.
Because Serena was in the front.
And
I was like still trying to get out of this deep conversation. And I was like, what just, I just remember going like, what? Like, we just flew back. I'm like, what just happened? And Danny was like, cruise control.
Conversation for like a long time after that.
You know, I think that story.
Pastor Mark's like, well, we're wrong. Why? I was like, I don't know.
Hey, listen, I would have been honored to go home to heaven early with Danny and Serene. How did you get here? Let me tell you, I was traveling with two amazing saints, and he said, let's go home to Jesus real quick today.
And I was like, God, you're in control, so maybe you didn't want the cruise control to shut off.
Hey, it would have been.
Turn it right back on.
It would have been the quick route.
It would have been the quick route.
It's always God's fault, right?
You know, it's a perfect description of my residency the past 9 months. Just 90 miles per hour.
Oh,
flying.
No, 98.
90. Oh, 98.
Other people stopped on the side of the road, and Abel just like, where's he going?
The Lord is moving fast.
Amen.
So that is what we want to talk about, though. We do want to try to talk about the residency and your experience.
Yeah.
And so we have myself, who was involved in the residency. We have Danny, who was
Commander-in-Chief
over here, mentoring. Didn't take you on any long road trips where you almost died. But that's if you would have went the final 3 months, that's what happened.
Yeah, it would have been. A couple Home Depot runs here and there, you know, a couple food runs.
Yeah.
Food runs.
And so, you know, as I was explaining before, what we want to do is just be able to ask you a few questions about what your experience was.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, we've enjoyed, you know, mentoring and being part of it and just investing in you.
Yeah. Fun.
But now is the time to really get serious and really just throw all of the garbage out there.
Oh, garbage.
So the world could see it. No, just kidding.
Garbage.
Just get it up. I really couldn't stand when Danny did that one thing. And just
air out all
stuff.
baggage.
So let me dive into some of these and we'll get some of your insight and your experience.
Definitely.
So, number one, what were some of the most valuable things that you learned during your residency?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, first of all, thank you to you guys for taking a risk. You know, if you guys don't know my story, I was very new to New Life, didn't know anyone really at New Life. And so when I was hired on, I mean, it was a risk, right? You guys didn't know who was coming in. You didn't know anyone who knew me. Now we know that there's a lot of connections and different people that we know, but initially you guys didn't know. So I just want to say thank you to you guys for giving me a chance, for taking the time to pour into me, taking the time to give me opportunities to hear my heart out, to allow me to walk and grow and really develop some of these giftings and develop character and develop just a lot of different components and aspects that go into being a healthy pastor, minister, leader. So thank you to you guys, first of all.
You were actually just saying, we're getting away from the I'll swing us back around to the question, but he was saying earlier when we were talking outside on the bench, because he just came back from a trip in Phoenix, he was saying it was kind of eye-opening to him going back after 9 months, just to realize, and you actually said other people saw it, the growth.
Really?
Yeah. People were just like, something's different, and not that I was bad before, but they're like, you seem more mature. You seem to just have it together a little bit more, I guess is the best way of putting it. And I've really felt that. I saw that, kind of a full circle moment, looking back at these past 9 months, looking at where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, and to see where the Lord has brought me now through relationship, through mentorship, through ministry responsibilities, all these different things that go into a residency and that go into just doing life and being a part of the church.
Well, I knew from the get-go, because your last name was Lopez. I looked, I was like, he's a hire. Let's
skip the process.
First Zoom call.
He's a hire. He's a Lopez.
First Zoom call. Hire him. At the end of that Zoom call, he's like, well. But yeah, so some of the things I've learned, I learned a lot, and there's been.
No, specifically say, what's the most valuable thing?
What's the most valuable things? I think one of them for sure is just learning how to lead people with different personalities, with different walks through the experience at East Humble, and interacting with different team members, the team who was there before to the team that is there now. I just really learned what it meant to gather a team together, rally them around a vision, and be able to communicate expectations and communicate, hey, this is what God wants to do through you. So a lot of team building, a lot of leadership when it comes to that, specifically rallying a group of leaders together to, in my specific context, pour into the next generation, right? And pour into these teenagers who are growing up and who are wanting to be led and wanting to be discipled, and gathering a team of adults who love Jesus and want to also do that for teenagers, right?
I remember one of the lessons that we talked about early on in light of what you're talking about is and I learned this from an old friend of mine who said, in leadership, pastoral ministry is learning how to manage personalities. Learning how to manage personalities. That was profound to me. And so I remember you went from a huge spectrum of the first set of leaders that you were introduced to, and then the second set of leaders which you recruited. Which is really cool. I think that's probably the best way to go.
And then something else that just kind of triggered my memory, another value. I actually didn't learn this in a specific interaction in the residency, but through a book I was reading, a youth ministry book. And one of the principles, he goes through 10 principles of being a healthy minister, just in general. And the 10th principle was, the grass is greener where you water it. And that just always stuck with me. I've shared it with multiple people. Like, the grass is greener where you water it. And so for me in this specific season, you and I were having conversations of, man, I just want to get to the next thing. I want to get to the next thing. I want to be doing the next thing. And you were like, yo, just slow down, you know, take it easy. And then I read that, and I felt like I was really just like, I need to do things to you right now, mold your heart, shape your character, grow you in different areas before you move to something else. So water the grass where you're at. You know, don't look to like, I can't wait to have 100 students. Be faithful with the little that you have now. That's biblical, right? Be faithful with what you have right now. pour into that, develop that, and allow the Lord to open up the next door when it is that timing.
That's good.
So that principle has stuck with me for months now, and it's just something that keeps popping back up.
I remember when when I think about some of the things that you learned, not all just skill oriented, but some of a mindset and perspective and growth stuff.
Yeah.
I remember the first quarter that Abel was in the residency, when one of the questions I forget that we would ask in our check-in, what is God doing in the season, or what are you wrestling?
What's he teaching you?
Yeah, what's he teaching you? And Abel was saying, especially in that first quarter, he's teaching me to be patient.
Yeah.
He's teaching me to, and there was a little bit of feeling like I feel like I may be behind some friends or people in my life, or I may, and I just feel like, and so there's this tension of, not that it wasn't that God didn't have you on the right path, but it was a comparison of your path and your journey to someone else's journey, and feeling like, well, they're ahead in this. And so that was cool to see you wrestle through it and come out realizing, no, I am on a different journey than other people, but I accept this journey that God has me on, and it's good. Like, this is what I need in this season. And that was cool. It was cool to see that. And you wrestle with it and live it out. Yeah,
it was a wrestle.
Not easy.
And to encourage anyone who's looking at a residency, it can be really easy to get to a place where maybe your friends are graduated. Like in my case, I had 3 friends. We all graduated from Moody, and 2 of them went into full-time youth ministry right off the bat.
Yeah.
And so for me, I've been bivocational for the past 3-4 years almost. And so that was where some of those comparison, or some of just that lack of trust in what God was doing, and why I was struggling with that was because I was comparing where's my journey at to where my friends are at.
Yeah.
And I had to come to a point, and really the Lord, I just had to trust God and what he was doing at this point, right? Back to the grass is greener where you water it.
Yeah.
Just trust where you're at right now. Pour and develop my relationship with you. Yeah. And then allow me to do the rest. And so that's when it kind of switched a little bit for me.
Yeah.
The light switch turned on.
Yeah, and that was valuable. You learned it, because it won't be the last time in your life. And I do feel like a lot of the, young adults that I've mentored or worked with, they wrestle with the same thing. I've literally had someone say, I feel like I'm behind because all my friends have like kids or dogs. And I'm like, dude, get a dog. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I do. I have felt like it, especially I feel like under 35 or under 30, there's a wrestling of, am I on track? Because you feel like you're setting yourself up for the long term. Yeah. And I think it's natural, but not helpful to compare. Yeah. Because everybody's on their own journey, right?
Especially now looking back, now that I'm 60, and I'm still getting used to saying
you're 60, Danny. Come on,
look
bro.
A day over 40.
Amen. But I feel a lot of days after. But now at this end of my life, looking at you and remembering me when I was 24, 25, getting started, and I was just coming out of a band, going into youth ministry in school. I had kids, but I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I wish I would have had this kind of training. Yeah. It probably would have, I wouldn't say accelerated, but it would have given me more tools, because I had to go find the tools. Yeah. I had to find the books. I had to go to the conferences. This was long before the internet. And then there was no one in the city mentoring anybody. Yeah. All the youth pastors, we were all green. We were just diving in. Right. So thank the Lord, even though you feel like you're behind, in reality, you're not. You're just growing at a pace that you can handle, that you can manage, because the pressures are going to be so big and so intense. If you don't know how to manage the problems, the people, the pressures, the expectations, you're going to fumble the ball constantly, and you're going to find yourself out of a job. Sure. So it's wise that you were able to get this mentoring from young and an older perspectives to make it round for you. Yeah. And strengthen you to be working smarter, not just hard.
Yeah. Said like a true pastor, people, problems. I can't remember the last P, but there's another P.
Alliteration. 101.
Said like a true pastor.
Yeah. It has been great to have the multiple generations too. Of just that's been fun to invest in you in that way, Abel. Yeah. Abel, the second question is, did your residency meet your expectations, and in what ways?
Yeah, most definitely. I think in a lot of ways it surpassed it. I came out of technically another residency back in Phoenix, and that one and this one, in a lot of ways were similar because I was receiving mentorship, accountability, but in some ways we're different. I feel like, with the residency here, you're gonna have a lot of intentional conversations about multiple areas of your life, and if you're not ready to be okay with having tough conversations about growth, about accountability, about being open, then you're probably going to struggle in this residency because we really want to walk alongside you. And if you're not being honest with us, then how can we walk alongside you, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're not,
it's good.
If we're not really understanding who you are and how you interact and how you process things and what you're struggling with or where you're having victory, how can we best come alongside you if we don't know those things?
Yeah.
So I think in a lot of ways, that's what I was looking for. I think the last residency was great, but I wanted something more in depth because I still knew that I had things to work through before I wanted to step into a full-time role. And so with this residency, being able to have two mentors, asking very intentional questions, getting into the nitty-gritty of my life. I mean, even just like following my relationship for the past 9 months with this girl that I've been building, right? A friendship to now a boyfriend and girlfriend season, right? Like being, both of you guys being in that, like to me, that's what the beauty of the church is, right? Because you're doing a residency. If you do a residency at a business or you're doing, some sort of apprenticeship somewhere else, they're not asking you questions about life or your spiritual walk, your faith, where you're at, your character. I mean, they're worried about profit and loss, right?
Yeah.
But with a church, especially going into a pastoral or some sort of leadership position, we're going to want to know who you are at the root of you.
Yeah.
And so being able to experience that with you guys and with other pastors and leaders throughout New Life, being able to have not only those conversations, but then ministry responsibility with the youth ministry, specifically in my residency. I think those two partner together make for a beautiful residency, make for a really powerful residency.
And as the mentor, because technically we have just met.
Yeah.
And we had the 2 Zoom calls.
But we had the connection because of the last name.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the breakfast with me and Asa and yourself, those were still, we were just discovering you. And then from my perspective, remember the first few times you were at the office, it was a little scary for me too, because I don't know this guy. And so what right do I have to ask you these ultra deep questions?
Yeah.
So it's like, how's he going to respond? Is he going to give me the pat answers? Is he going to give me the religious answers?
Yeah.
Or is he going to be, is he going to be real? And I think we both had to warm up to each other, because we would sit for 3-4 hours and just talk, And so it was scary even on my end, but it was wonderful to be able to, privileged and honored to know that you were able to welcome me into your life and welcome me to ask you those tough questions.
Yeah. I look forward to them every week.
Yeah. I mean, I loved the process. I thought it was a lot of fun. Like, I'm very relational. I think our culture is very relational here. So to just build relationship weekly and, what we talked about even before you were in the residency, but what we'd really go back to is these 3 categories that we kind of filter everybody through. Yeah. Character, competency, and chemistry.
Yeah.
And so chemistry you build by being around a team and just fitting, right? I mean, that's just being around. But the, character piece, which is the most important, when God talks about in his word, leaders, there's one that has to do with skill, right? And all the other qualifications have to do with character. Yeah. And so we know that God values the character of the heart more than just the ability to get his mission done.
Yeah.
And so, but I felt like our, even the questions that we had, the habits, the check-in, and we would have a good, healthy balance of saying, how are we developing in character? How are we growing in that area, which is the most important? But how are we growing through you being in the trenches of ministry? What are you stuck with? What are you? What do you have questions about?
Yep.
Where do you feel like you're succeeding? Where do you feel like you need help? Yep. And to have the balance of somebody in the trenches of ministry and then have like, not just I was reading this in a book and this is, I wonder what that's going to be like, but I'm in it and I'm doing it, and I think is the sweet spot.
Yeah.
You know?
And something I want to add, I think you will get as much out of the residency as you put in.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is if you go to your mentorship meetings and you're having these one-on-ones, if you're not being honest with yourself first and with your mentor, you're going to cheat yourself out of a really fruitful and growing residency.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not honest about what you're going through, what you're processing, what you're thinking about, where your struggles are, you will rob yourself of letting God really move and work in your heart.
Yeah.
And the only person that is going to lose from that, I mean, New Life will lose, but you're really going to, I mean, you're wasting your time in a bit. So I just want to encourage, like, be honest, be real, know you're here to grow, and that you have mentors, pastors, and leaders who really want to see you grow and are cheering for you and want to walk alongside you in that.
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely a relationship there. There's definitely love there. There's definitely, I told Abel, it's like, I care. Like, I'm investing because I care. And, you know, and so that, I think that needs to be the foundation, not just, we're trying to raise a leader up, but we really care about you.
Yeah.
Like, we want you to succeed. We want you to go to the next level. We want you to do amazing things for the Lord. And so this is a process of a brotherhood, of working in relationship.
Most definitely.
All right. Number 3, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced during your residency, and how did you overcome them?
Biggest challenges, man, doing announcements. No,
I'm laughing because that is so true, man. Announcements are hard. I'd rather preach than give announcements.
You got to really articulate those announcements so people aren't falling asleep. No, what were some of the
biggest challenges, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I can think of one.
Yeah, I can think of one.
I just don't know how much I mean, there was a transition that happened at EHP that was very sudden and was very tough on not just Pastor Danny or myself, but really the whole congregation as a whole.
Yeah.
And so trying to step into that, be gentle and compassionate with the congregation, but also have a sense of, we got to move forward too.
Yeah.
Like there are teenagers here who are hungry and want to be poured into, and we can't just be stuck in the past. And so maneuvering a tough transition, again, going back to the different personalities, how do you work with people who are really like stubborn, or who don't want to who don't agree with you always, right? So just working through tough transitions is something that was so valuable for me to see, even as Pastor Danny went through it, right? And getting to just hear him out and soundboard with him and be like, okay, what am I learning right now that I can apply to the future, into my current situation? What is God teaching me even through this experience? So that it was a challenge. And I don't wish it upon any campus of ours or any church to go through something like that.
Yes.
But it was a huge learning nugget.
Yeah, because this is not something that we read in a book. You know, you can't throw someone, hey, Abel, read this book and then let's talk.
Right.
This was something that it was real time lessons for both of us. We were learning, you, me, David, all of us, and even our family that transitioned down.
Yeah.
Learning how to be a Christian, a practitioner of the faith in the ugliness and the reality of humanity.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
Right. And what I enjoyed about this residency too is that as we continue to discover one another through conversation, I learned that I can be safe around him. I was safe. Remember, dude, we were just talking about me. You know, I'm going through. He's mentoring me. You know,
I'm in this situation. Help me out, Abel. I'm in the trench right now.
One or two meetings were like, wait, I think I just heard that's the mentor real quick. I was like, what do I do here?
He was dropping some bombs. I was like, dude, man. I said, how old are you? So we both learned, and I was able to trust him with my heart while I was just figuring out what in the world is going on, and how am I going to fix this? How are we going to deal with this? A few times it's like he saw and heard the ugliness of me. It's like, remember I was like, did you hear all that? You know, it's like, so people was like, no, because, you know, the door was closed. Like, bro.
But it's important though. It's important that, and this is one of the things that I think that jacks people up a little bit. I think that if you haven't been a part of leadership, and most people haven't, or like I had the ability of growing up in a pastor's home, so I saw a great example. But what I didn't just see a great example, I saw I don't want to say the dark side of the church, but I saw some of the challenges that pastors had to face. People will say things, situations will happen. And if you've never been exposed to that and you think it's just preaching and everyone just loves you and just applauds for you all the time. I mean, I really feel like sometimes people go into ministry and they have a very skewed perspective of just, they don't have a full understanding of the challenge that comes with ministry as well.
Right.
And I think it's so important that you go through some of those valleys, some of those transitions, some of those trenches, and that you're able to see, that you're able to see. I do that too often. I know.
Oh man,
that you're able to see.
the dad joke.
Yeah. A pastor wrestle through.
Yeah.
Because a pastor is a man of God, but they're a human.
Yeah.
There's still a man.
There's still a
God.
man, right? And there's a part of like, I'm wrestling with it. I'm hurt through it. And I think that's important for somebody to see so that they don't go into a situation blinded by just the good side of ministry, but they realize like it is tough to be in leadership in general, and it's tough to be in church leadership. And I would rather somebody see a full perspective of the fullness and the reality of really the good and the good, the bad, the ugly of ministry, so that they know what they're getting into. Because I felt like when I stepped into ministry, you know, I had a good understanding because I grew up in a ministry home and I was exposed to that in the home. That I saw like, oh, okay, I know what this is. Like I get a clear understanding. And I was raised in a great context and saw a healthy church and all of that. But there's still, no matter what, as healthy as the church can be, there's going to be those tough moments and those things that the pastors weighs on them. And it's important for you as an upcoming leader for you to see that so clearly. Right?
Yeah, and so that was kind of an outer experience, something that I experienced that was outside of my control, but a challenge that I had faced that was really inner able, right? Something that was happening in me. It's really easy to come into residencies, especially if you have previous experience in the ministry you're coming into. It was really hard for me at times to come into EHP and not start to think, what can I change? What can I add? What can we do differently? And that was something that I struggled for the first like month, maybe even 2 months of just, and I mean, I was thinking through it, and sometimes it was just genuinely wanting to take something and make it better. But sometimes it was pride, and it was, I can do this better. Just let me do it. And that's,
it's tough.
That's tough. You know, that's kind of, but you have to face that. And those are some of the challenges as you're in a residency, especially if you have experience beforehand. Like if you're coming into a green, brand new,
then you don't know.
Right. And you're like, okay, I'm learning. But I came out of it from doing 2 years of bivocational youth ministry under a veteran youth pastor who's been doing youth ministry for 20 years in Phoenix. Right. So I learned a lot from him. Right. I did my best to absorb as many principles and as many things as possible. So when I came here, it was really easy to be like, oh, change this, change that. But
so how did you overcome that? Because I remember these conversations.
I'm in progress.
I'm in progress now.
You stepped into it, and I remember having a conversation. You're saying, there's so many things. They do a lot well, but there's so many things that they could do better. There's so many things that I want to change. There's so many, but I'm not the person. I'm not the guy. I'm not the leader. So how did you overcome that? Because there's going to be other leaders that will be in that situation. So what's your advice?
It was humbling, and that's where your relationship with your mentor is so key and integral to the residency, right? I was able to safely express that to both Josiah and Danny, and express where I'm at. And then you got to be teachable and humble, right? Because then they would say, hey, that's kind of wrong, right? Like they would call me out, right? And in a very loving way, but just in truth, like, what if we tried thinking about it like this? What if you tried slowing down a little bit? This isn't your time yet to come out and start changing things. Just be present, learn, and grow the relationships with the co-leaders, with the youth leader. So it's just, I mean, it comes down to really making the decision to listen to your mentor, be teachable, be open, be humble, and swallow your pride a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think there's like a special formula.
Yeah.
It's it comes back down to, where are you rooting yourself? Are you rooting yourself in your own performance and your own ability, or you're rooting yourself in who you are in Jesus?
Or you being the person,
or you being the
you
person,
being the
right,
shot caller,
right.
or you being the one in charge.
Exactly.
And I remember those conversations, and Abel said, I said, part of what I said to Abel is I said, Abel, you will have your chance. You will have your time to lead, but you need to be patient. You need to learn the way that they're doing. There may be things even with all your experience that you can learn from the way that they're doing it in this context, in this place.
Definitely.
That if you have eyes to see and kind of, can deal with your frustration, like this is a season where you can actually allow yourself to learn, to minister, and one day you will have that. And so you'll have the freedom, but be patient and follow this leader, even if you would do things different, which is difficult, especially if you like want it to be as good and as excellent as possible. It is difficult to submit or hold. And I said you could share some of those thoughts, but you need to not
push them,
grow irritable if it's not what the way that you would do it. And I wrestle with that too. I've wrestled with that so much in other seasons.
Now, when the transition happened in December, and then everything, like pretty much a broken plate was thrown on your lap. All these pieces.
And you're saying transition, just for context, you're saying there were several people that transitioned from the church,
correct,
specifically in the area of ministry of youth that Abel was involved.
Right, all the leadership.
Went from 6 leaders to 2 leaders, including myself.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden now you're in the limelight. You were thrown into this broken situation. We were all just kind of like, whoa. We were all just like, And so
shaken.
what did you do? Because now you have the chance.
Yeah.
Now you're the man.
God's like, all right, bro, let's see what you got.
Let's see those great ideas.
What you got now, huh? No, I mean, I remember very specifically, we were in the lobby area at EHP. We had a bake sale the Sunday beforehand, and so we had extra pieces that we were giving away and selling at Wednesday night prayer. In that room, it was yourself, Maria, who's one of the volunteers, and myself. And, we at that point, the last couple of leaders still hadn't fully transitioned out yet, but we knew they're on their way out. And so I told Pastor Danny and Maria, I was like, look, you got me at that point for the next 6 months. I'm here. We're going to get this thing going. And I was like, I'm going to lay my best ability, lay down the foundation and set the next resident youth pastor, youth leader up for a complete success, so they can come in, smooth transition, and be able to take off running. And so that's what we did. We had a quick meeting, yourself, Maria, and myself. We took a 2-week break for Christmas and New Year's. I put together 3 different phases that we were going to go through, added structure and systems in play, recruited a team, and just started really casting vision for them and sharing the passion that I have for pouring into the next generation and instilling that into them and allowing them and helping them see how they're making a practical impact week in and week out. And through that and through healthy rhythms and through just building little blocks on little blocks, right? Inviting students, encouraging students to invite their friends, just being a high energy, just, a welcoming presence, having all our leaders be that on a Thursday night for our students. It slowly started to just come together. And
it did. All
of it was Holy Spirit and the Lord moving through us and using us as instruments, but we just made ourselves available.
So. All right. Number 4, how did your residency help you grow as a pastoral leader?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of moments where I was just frustrated on where I was at in my walk. I've been a believer since I was in 6th grade. It's got to be I think 14 years at this point, almost 15. And I had just gotten to a point where I was frustrated in my walk, and I knew that this residency would be really a really big growth factor for myself. So just some background on my story. when I applied for New Life, I applied to be the youth pastor at Midway, and then it switched gears to the residency. And so basically I was living in Phoenix and I was working at this church out there. And so what it came down to was, hey, we'll offer you a part-time residency with no promise or guarantee of the youth pastor position at the end, but we want to invest and grow you to that role, right?
Yeah.
And so as I was explaining it to my family before I left, I'm like, so my family was like, so let me get this straight. You have no guarantee of a full-time role at this church. It's going to be part-time. You're going to move back to Chicago. You'll have no family out there. And you want to do this all by yourself.
They're like, am I missing something?
Yeah. They're like, where is the
appeal?
Where's the appeal in that? And I was like, God called me to.
Yeah.
And I knew, like, when I came to visit, I knew it was very clear. The Lord made it very clear. This is where I want you next. I'm going to shape you and mold you and pour into you. Let me do that. And so
that's because you got some good pancakes.
some good at the breakfast place.
At that breakfast joint.
That place was pretty fire. Yeah, it was pretty
It was
good.
the pancakes that sold.
Hey, the
Yeah,
Holy
it's
Spirit
the
works with pancakes, man. He works with all different types of stuff.
All different types of things. And so through my residency, it really just a lot of the areas where I was frustrated with in my walk, a lot of things that I was still struggling with. I knew that the only way that these things would start to, I really would start mature out of them and mature into another level of my relationship with Jesus, was with intentional mentorship, accountability.
Yeah.
I forgot the initial question, but what I really enjoyed about it and what really solidified my growth in this, and specifically as a pastor,
That's it.
really came down to the openness and my willingness to be honest with my struggles.
Yeah.
Here's where I'm at, and I'm ready to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And I'm not looking to be impeccable, but I'm looking to grow exponentially in these areas.
Yeah.
Because I've experienced it, and I believe that when your character is really rooted in your relationship with Christ, when you really are walking in integrity, you pastor and you minister with a different freedom.
Absolutely.
Like you do it in confidence, and not because of who you are, but because of what Jesus has done for you first and foremost, and the Spirit is with you. And so there's just this freedom. And so I've experienced that in pockets as I've graduated from Moody and was at the last church, but I've really experienced that in a whole other level here.
Yeah.
As I've allowed myself to be poured into, mentored, and been honest about my struggles.
Yeah.
And through that, I've just felt and experienced a whole new freedom when it comes to loving and pastoring and shepherding people, that when you're walking a life that's double-sided or
Not where you want it to be.
Not where you want it to be, I get it. We have, rough seasons, and there are seasons in our life, but man, being able to really be confident in who you are in Christ, and that you're really living this life out, and really setting the example for your ministry, for your leaders, for your students, for whoever it is you're ministering to, it really just, it flourishes ministry in a whole new way, and allows you as a pastor, as a leader, to lead in a freedom that you're not like looking over your shoulder almost. You just know, I am walking with Jesus. I am leading a life that people can peer in behind the curtains, and who I am on the stage or who I am outside of my house is the same person behind those four walls.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that growth, what I would like for future residents to say more than anything is that my character was developed. Like, I've grown to a deeper place with Jesus. I've grown in my maturity as a Christian.
Yeah.
Right. Because that affects everything that you do. And we want to put tools, and we want to equip you, and we want to work through, how to vision cast, and how to mobilize a team, and how to navigate transitions. This fly right here, this fly from Satan. But that is the most important part, because if you have the gifting but you don't have the character. It's a house of cards that eventually falls. And we continue to see examples of that in the church, of just people with amazing gifting and they get promoted and brought up, and they're brought to this level of influence. But if the character's not there, it's not worth it. And it's actually more damaging in the long term. Because it's more public when that fall happens. It's more damaging to the amount of people that were influenced by the ministry that God did through you. And now all these people are affected and challenged. And to say what Abel was saying, I mean, Abel really did take a leap of faith, as we did as well. You know, I told Abel, I said, you know, if we're jumping into this residency, I said, I feel like you have a lot of the right pieces and we can grow with that. But I said, I was really clear with him. I said, I'm absolutely not promising you something at the end. I said, we have positions. We have openings. That's not the issue. It's not that we don't have anything to offer. I said, but we will not, this is not you go through a year-long process, we check a box and now you're in. This is a growth and maturity process where if you're actually ready for this next level of responsibility and maturity, then we'll open the door and instill you with greater influence and authority. But if you're not ready for that, we feel no obligation to put you in greater authority over more people with more responsibility if you're not ready yet. And so regardless of what type of degree you have or what this or what that or what you have on your resume, to us, that's secondary to you being the person that God has called and at a maturity level where you can actually take care of his flock, where you actually can care for his people. And actually, you know, really be able to serve them well.
And the cool thing also about this residency is, in a matter of speaking, it'll never end. I mean, it's going to transition into something else, but the mentoring will always still be there. The relationships will always still be there. The teachings will always still be there, because that's just how we're designed that way as a staff. We're trying to make sure that everyone is covered. Get out of here, Satan. That everyone is covered.
We've named the fly.
Get behind me.
Everyone is covered. Everyone is accountable. Everyone has relationships. Like, you know, Asa, him and I right now are probably the closest because he checks up on me. I check up on him, and other guys, Bobby Moss and others. This will never end, but you're just going to transition into other guys that you'll be able to sit and have deep conversations with.
Most definitely. Just to reiterate, I almost knocked this coffee table over about 3 times now. It's so
the final test of the residency.
But just to reiterate, when you told me, there was no promise, for me, I was like, I'm okay with that because I know what I was coming here for. Like, I really wanted to be.
You were committed to it.
Yeah, I was. Like, I was like, I really, and even I was like, man, even if that doesn't end up working out, end up doing something else, the Lord is good. He's sovereign. He's in control. But I just really want to get to a place where I know that I'm leading and living a life that is so rooted and grounded in Jesus and in the gospel that there's a freedom that comes from ministering. To ministering from that. And so, I was very adamant. When you told me that, I was like, it didn't faze me because I was like, okay, but like I'm there to grow. Like that's what I'm coming out for. And I saw
Say your line. What was your line? I was there for the.
I was come for a process, not the position.
And I think that's
not the position.
And there's so much truth in that. So many times people go through a process because they don't want the process. The process is just a means to the end. It's just a means to the end. I want the position and I'm going to do this thing. I'm not going to put my heart into it. I'm not going to be committed to it. It's not really so I can, if I grow, I grow, but I'm just trying to get the position. I'm trying to get the paycheck. I'm trying to get the authority. I'm trying to get the ability to preach. And it's so backwards. It's so backwards.
It's a scary spot to be in.
It's a scary spot to be in, but I did feel like Abel, and it's what we're looking for in everybody, is that they're coming to be developed and to grow into who God has called them to be. And if that leads to a position, which it often does, it leads to greater influence, it leads to greater responsibility, then that's something that God chooses and trusts and the church leadership does. But we're here to be honed by church leaders. We're here to be honed by the Holy Spirit. We're here to be honed by his word. And that's consistent growth that just happens day in, day out of just saying, hey, I'm committed to becoming more like Christ is really what you were jumping into saying. I'm committed to be more like Christ and to submit to these mentors that are being used by God in this process to shape me and mold me to be more like him.
And that the process is working, because case in point, on last Sunday, he was away in Arizona, but we showed the monthly video, and it was him. It was hysterical. I called him. It was hysterical to hear the response of the congregation the moment they saw him. There was a lot of, oh, hey, there's Abel. Oh. I turned around. I was like, what, really? Which means, in 9 months, you were able to build beautiful bridges.
Yeah.
Not just with kids, but with parents and people.
Yeah. The congregation loved him.
Yeah.
Which is everything.
Yeah. I love them. Love you guys still.
Did you develop any new skills or areas of expertise during your residency?
Yeah, I think my preaching really got honed in a lot in the residency. I only preached 3 or 4 times on a Sunday morning, but I've been doing a lot of teaching week in and week out with Thursday nights with the students. So that was definitely like a very practical skill where I saw a significant growth jump in just being able to communicate biblical truth and being able to apply it and being able for it to be applicable to someone's life. So that one was like off the bat.
We had a lot of fun. We drove back from this conference in Indianapolis, this Grow Leader conference, and we had about 45 minutes on the way back. And I said, let's listen to your sermon now. So he played his sermon. He played his sermon, and we did I did live critique of it.
Tore it apart.
Oh, come on. I was like, hey, this was good. I said, tweak this. You need to be more clear. No, I mean, I feel like I'm in that process right now of trying to become better. Like I'm literally, I reviewed my past sermon, this sermon from the week before, and I've just created a process for me, steps in a process for me to get better at communicating. Yeah. One of those, we know it's not mind-boggling, but reviewing my sermon, I had probably 25 things on there of change this, change that, change this, improve this.
Too hard on yourself, bro.
Smile more.
Okay, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
You're just so zoned in.
I'm so zoned in. I know.
On communicating that truth.
I know.
My problem is that I tend to get off. I get off the paper because I get into
you get into one zone and
it's like, I know there's a whole bunch of people here. Y'all need to hear this.
Yeah, I know.
So here you go.
But you know how valuable that is to have somebody else speak into your preaching.
Yeah.
Not only your own feedback, but I do it with my dad. Having somebody who's saying, "Hey, let me help you get better," and having that consistently, that speaking process, that evaluation process, that it makes all the difference.
We even toyed signing up with doing a comedy club. Stand-up comedy, remember?
Yeah, I'm still open to it.
I'm a little scared.
I'm still open to it.
Signing a comedy club?
Yeah, just learn how to, do some comedy.
Yeah, to learn how to just communicate humor even.
Into a message.
Yeah,
so.
and whatever it takes, right?
Goes like this, like don't, Danny, don't.
She does. I hear her. She's like, oh, Danny.
Oh, Danny, please.
It was funny,
She's like, oh gosh.
All right, let me ask this question.
Yeah.
What was your favorite aspect of your residency experience?
Yeah, I felt like the first half of the residency was a lot of curriculum, books, podcasts, and I read 13 books on either youth ministry, personal growth, leadership books, all just a wide range of books
and social
books.
Social issues.
Yeah, just like different, curriculum and content that I was taking in through podcasts, through videos, through articles, through books. So I felt like the first 6 months of the residency was heavy on that, because I was helping out with the youth group, but I wasn't leading it, right? And so a lot of my residency time initially was filled with mentorship and content, and just like taking in and really digesting content. So that was awesome. I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
Is number 7. What was your favorite aspect of the experience?
Yes. So the second half of it, I love that I got to put that into place, right?
Yeah.
Through the transition, I got to recruit people and adults that I saw, one that I felt like the Lord was really drawing me to them, but that I really saw potential in them to be able to step into this. So being able to recruit them, build a culture of just camaraderie and family and celebration and want to grow together. We're doing this together.
Yeah.
Building that team dynamic was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
I think something that I learned in the residency was as much as I love seeing it click for students in their faith and like taking their faith seriously, I loved seeing it click for leaders and that they can pour into this next generation.
We had a disagreement. He was.
That sounds rougher than it was.
Yeah,
it wasn't like we were like, you know what? I'm doing it this way.
No.
Paul and Peter.
It was more like, I want to do this. Like, well, you know.
And I was like, I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. And so, but I told him, I said, you know, I had to trust his insight. I didn't agree with this one particular leader. But I was like, well, you know, I took a risk.
Yeah.
And oh my word. He was right. I was wrong. The growth of this young man was exponential.
Yeah.
The maturity level, his spirituality, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he took a risk on one guy, and then whatever he did, I have no idea what he did, but it worked. It worked, and I was blown away. Blown away.
Yeah, that was really cool to see that. I mean, he ended up baptizing one of his students, public speaking from the stage, baptizing him and praying over him, and things that he just had never done before. But I think there are people in these zones, and this is getting into the weeds a little bit, but there are people in these zones where their next big growth spurt will come with serving and being put in a place where they're almost forced to grow.
Yeah.
And that's where I saw him, and I was like, he's growing at a good pace right now.
Yeah.
But when he gets, I was really just praying through and thinking about him. It's a risk, right?
Yeah.
It is a risk.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was a calculated risk. And I'm like, I think the moment he gets put into a place where he's leading students and leading his small group boys, it will force him to elevate
to another level of
really
growth. He needs that hands-on.
Exactly.
And it did.
And he actually said that with him. A student and I went out to lunch to go walk through our blue book, the baptism book, and really learning about faith, repentance, and baptism. And the leader said that to his student. He's like, man, you growing is forcing me to grow in a very good way. And I was like, that's exactly it. Right there.
Yeah.
So
it was good.
So to circle back, do you think that your favorite aspect was the hands-on experience?
Yeah.
Would you say that then?
Yeah. I love the content and being able to process books and podcasts with y'all, but being able to put those into practice and doing it at the time that God designated it. I think, again, we could force things and we can make things happen, but it was just, it was so smooth and easy and just fun to do it at the moment that God had opened that door to do it. So.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. We focused a lot on those growth habits too.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, checking in. Did you get your podcast in this week? Are you reading your book? Are you getting into your word? Are you? Yeah. Because those are not the flashy things, but those are the things that make the biggest difference over time.
Oh yeah.
They really do. They really do. They're not like you don't always realize how big of a difference that makes in the short term, but over the long term, that little investment, that little thought, that little nugget, that little way of doing things makes a huge difference over the long haul.
Definitely.
All right. How did you feel supported by the residency program and mentors during your time there?
I mean, one, through the weekly mentorship meetings, right? I mean, I had Mondays were with Pastor Danny, Wednesday mornings were with Pastor Josiah. So and those usually range from an hour to 2 hours, just depending on the day and flexibility. So those were awesome, right? Those were foundational, and really the meat of the residency is those conversations. And again, being humble, open, transparent, and teachable, right? If you cut yourself short on any one of those, you're going to cheat yourself out of a really fruitful and powerful residency. So in those conversations, definitely felt loved and supported. The congregation at EHP, I was plugged into a life group. So that wasn't a part of the residency, but I'm a hyper relational person, and I love building relationship with people. I love hearing about people's stories, and I love doing life with people. And so the moment I heard that EHP had life group openings, or we were starting to do life groups, I got plugged into a life group.
Yeah.
And Leash and Ray, which is his son-in-law and his daughter, poured into me, right? So I had you guys pouring into me. I had them pouring into me. I had our life group pouring into me, right? So I just, and then friendships that I would, create along the way. Like Esteban and I became friends out of one of the conferences, right? And him and I had developed a super cool friendship. Different friends that I met at different events, right? That I've been able to develop friendships with. So I love that New Life is so relational because it's so easy to get plugged in. If you're an introvert or you're less relational, you might need to push yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than just the residency itself, get plugged into get plugged into community inside your local campus, wherever you're at, right? Whether you find yourself at Rogers Park or Elgin or all the way in Homer Glen or Hammond, like get plugged into the community. Yeah. Get plugged in because that's where, like, my life group, I always told them one of the best life groups I've ever been a part of. It was just so natural. I would go there and I would come out refreshed, rejuvenated, loved, and just built a really sweet community with them.
Yeah. But you also got a great cup of coffee.
I did every Wednesday nights.
You guys are coffee snobs.
Fresh
Northsiders are coffee snobs, man. Come on.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. They would make us coffee,
oat milk with a little bit of honey and a little touch of cinnamon.
You want to make Pastor Danny happy? Bring him a honey oat latte with a dash of cinnamon.
That's right.
Just a dash.
Two dashes.
Just a dash.
Hot. Bring me mine iced. I like it iced. But outside of just a residency and conversations with you guys and other leaders and mentors, like getting just plugged into the community at your campus. Like, it's so much fun. Yeah. Like being able to do life with people.
Yeah. So all of those aspects of support, the mentors, the life group that you're part of, the other leaders at the location, just here to answer questions, here to walk with you alongside things, here to, not just, once again, not just give you information, but walk alongside of you, like a Paul Timothy type of relationship. All right, what advice would you give to someone considering this pastoral residency program?
Yeah, I already said it, but come for a process, not the position. Come to be poured into, come to be shaped, come to be molded. If you're just coming for a position, call yourself out on it and, be open about it. And it's okay if you call yourself out on it, you're like, man, I think my heart is really bent towards a position, not the process. Yeah. Because that'll be the first step in getting to a mentality where you are coming for a process and not just a position. You got to be able to acknowledge that your heart was in the wrong place when you applied, or when you were thinking about it, or when you were dreaming about it. Because that's the first step in getting to a place where, you are getting to a point where you're coming for a process. So that's like number one thing that I shared on a previous video that I've shared with everyone who's thought about applying for residency is come for the process, come to be poured into, come to be shaped, and be open and humble and teachable while you're here. And the Lord will provide a position when necessary, when open, on his timing. Yeah. Trust that. Yeah. If he's calling you to it, he will equip you and he will bring you to where you need to be. Worry about drawing nearer to him. Worry about growing in your walk and in your faith. Worry about becoming more and more dependent on Jesus, and the rest will follow suit. I mean, it's Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God.
Amen.
Everything else should be added to you.
It's
good. And hold on to that. Do that. And his promise is good.
It's good.
Yeah, man.
What are your future plans now that your residency is over?
Future plans? I am the youth director here at Midway. I'm excited to be stepping into that. I'm kind of spinning a couple different plates right now, or transitioning out of East Humble, transitioning Ray into East Humble, him and Soraya, making sure that they feel just acquainted and equipped, and make sure their transition
set up to succeed.
Set up to succeed, right? And then transitioning into Midway and learning the team and building relationships here, and getting to know the students here. So that's where we're at now, and I'm super excited. And it's so sweet because I feel like, and I truly believe that it was on God's timing.
Absolutely,
I didn't have to rush anything. And
I remember our prayer meetings. This is probably February-ish, maybe March. We were talking about we're already thinking about now, June
Yeah.
and July, and like, dude, you're going to be leaving, and no one, we have no idea like
Yeah, we
who's
had no
coming. And remember, we're throwing some names down, like, nah. And so we were just praying, like, Lord, we just really believe, have to believe you have a ram in the bush.
Yeah.
I just have to. To me, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Knowing who God is, why would you start something and then just leave it?
Yeah.
And so, and thank the Lord, by his good timing, we have a new couple that stepped in.
There were a couple Mondays there where we were just spending an hour praying, like, God, provide somebody. Like,
Help.
these students deserve someone who's going to love on them, who's going to point them to Jesus, who's going to lead the team well.
Yeah.
And so we just could not leave EHP without that person, that couple there. Committed. And man, they are committed. I'm really excited for them.
They're a good team.
They're going to do a great
They're
job.
going to be awesome.
Danny, anything you want to say, to Abel about after the 9 months, or anything you want to say to the future residents who may be watching this?
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, to be honest with you, I really don't feel like I did anything for him. I told him numerous times, I'm like, bro, and I've told my wife, I've told my kids, like, this guy is way ahead of his time. I feel like we just got a good package. You know what I mean? I felt like, what did I teach you? I don't think I taught you anything, man. Other than our conversations and
tell me how to drink coffee right.
Yeah. It's those kinds of things. And I enjoyed the fact that you and I got to go through that hardship together. Mm-hmm. I think that's where we grew real tight, real fast.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it because I'm glad that you were there. We were able to talk through it and watch you rebuild our youth ministry and see a great program be established and grow, Yeah. So thank the Lord for that.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to agree with you in regards to anyone planning on doing this. Come with a heart hungry to grow. I think, remember our second Zoom meeting, we were talking about the culture here at New Life. And I remember Asa and I, and we were just talking about it. And you're like, man, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
And then when I was talking to Ray about it, the first time I had breakfast with him, and I described our culture and training and resources, I remember we're having pancakes.
There it is.
That's his go-to, man. That's how you win people over.
And he's like, this is what I need. I want to grow.
Yeah.
I want to grow. I want to mature my faith.
Yeah.
And not that he's ignorant. And he's been doing youth ministry for 5 years. His theology is pretty sound.
Yeah.
But he just wants to be a part of a team.
Yeah.
A team, a family.
Yeah.
A group of brothers and sisters who are living life together and ministering to a broken city and being a light and a community. So come ready to grow, come ready to be a part of a family that's alive and growing.
Amen.
Yeah. Say the same thing. I've loved the process. I've loved working alongside of you. Excited for the future to serve alongside of you. And I think that you had a lot of the right pieces in place, and that was part of the discernment process. Even on the front end, I felt like I'm willing to take a risk with this guy, and hoped for the best, but didn't know, hey, we'll see.
Man.
People can say what they want to say, and you can have those conversations. And I felt like you were honest and genuine from very early on. I felt like he's being transparent, he's being open, and I feel like it's been. I've seen you grow tremendously. I've seen the growth that you've had. I've seen the things that you've wrestled with. And I'm just excited for what God is going to do through your life in this next season and in the future. It's on to more growth, on to the next thing. But as you're entrusted with more responsibility, I'm excited. And for anybody that's thinking about applying for the residency, come ready to be. Come teachable, come humble.
Yeah.
No matter what level of experience you have, come for a process, not a position.
Yeah.
Come to look more like Jesus
Yeah.
and be transformed by a church that's really trying to, accomplish a mission of, capturing 1% of the city of Chicago, a dream and a vision to do this together. That's part of what I love about our culture. Is very relational, but we're driven. I mean, we don't want to just be like, let's just do church as always. Like, we really want to reach people for Christ. We really want to be part of a family that cares for one another, but also is willing. That's an army that's willing to serve alongside one another. So, I'm excited for who God's going to bring, and I'm actually personally praying. Actually continuously, Lord, bring the right people, bring the right residents. And so I really believe that God is going to draw the right people like yourself, Abel. I believe God drew you to this process. Like, 100%. I don't think this is just, something that happened by coincidence, but I think God is going to continue to draw people, and as we're pouring, investing, loving, encouraging, challenging, I'm excited to see what really comes from this, because I know God's going to use it for His kingdom.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see who's next.
Yeah,
excited to see who's next.
Yeah, you're gonna be the OG one day, dude. You're gonna be the.
I know what you're going through.
I remember that.
He's no longer the rookie.
Lord willing, no longer the guinea pig, the OG now. Man, the OG.
Lord willing, 10, 15 years from now, hopefully developing residence of my own.
Oh, I'd love to see it.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Cool.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
This is awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.